This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. We'll get to all the melting and the forecast a little bit later in the program. But first tonight, let's go have some fun. Let's check in with meteorologist John Sauder, who joins us from live out in the community tonight. Where are you, John?
I'm in Oakville, Manitoba, Janet, and you know, the Jets have done this a couple of years now where they've got a town takeover, and this year the lucky winner was Oakville, Manitoba. So this is just a few kilometers east of Portage-la Prairie, and it's a whole day of activity. The people are in the schools, the Jets alumni are there, skating with the kids. It's a fun day. They talk about Project 11. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it all culminates with what you see behind me, a bunch of excited kids and a viewing party. The Jets taking on the Minnesota Wild tonight. Benny's here, Mickey Moose is here. It's going to be a great time, and I'll be talking a little bit more about this later on. You know, Janet, tonight's a really important night. The Jets and the Minnesota Wild, if the Jets win, that pretty much clinches a playoff spot. So that's what we want, right, kids? Yeah, that's what we want.
Thanks so much, John. We'll check in with you a little bit later. Now, of course, the warm temperatures we had today has the snow in Winnipeg melting rapidly. But at City Hall, icy sidewalks are still a hot topic. One councillor is pushing for a study on clearing sidewalks right down to the bare pavement. As CBC's Cameron McLean reports, Councillor Matt Allard is continuing with this fight because he calls it a human rights issue.
These icy sidewalks are an inconvenience for many Winnipeggers every spring. But for people like Marika Prokosh, who is visually impaired, they can be dangerous.
Maybe there's like a 2-inch drop down where they've shoveled. And if you don't see very well, as I don't, and you miss that, you can twist an ankle on that.
You and I are all aging.
Seniors advocate Connie Newman says the uneven walking surface keeps many people in their houses and limits their ability to stay healthy.
We want to continue to walk, and sometimes during November to April, it's difficult, and we become isolated.
People have the right to participate equally in society.
St. Boniface councillor Matt Allard has asked council to approve a study of a pilot project that would plow sidewalks down to bare pavement. It's the 4th time this term he's brought forward a motion on the issue. He's criticized some of his council colleagues, including Public Works Chair
Luke's and of the mayor have been based on their comments not supporting this particular idea and not proposing any other solutions.
Criticisms Luke's clearly finds frustrating.
We don't do this job. We don't forfeit so much time of our family life and private life to be put on a pedestal, to be put on in a pothole, whatever, to be hammered on social media. People who don't even read the reports, who don't even watch this stuff, who do not have a clue.
Gillingham says he campaigned on creating neighborhood action teams that will look for issues in communities like icy sidewalks.
We also have a report that's coming by the end of June on how we did this last winter with our snow clearing, including sidewalk snow clearing.
The Public Works Committee rejected Allard's proposal for a 4th time today. Council will hold a final vote on the matter at its meeting later this month. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And now from icy sidewalks to a hazard caused by melting. Our freeze-thaw cycle can turn pavement cracks into pavement craters. CBC's Joanne Roberts dodged potholes today to bring us this report.
It's another bumpy spring in Winnipeg, with drivers trying as best as they can to avoid going into potholes.
It's terrible. It's crazy.
What do you do to avoid it?
I just go swerve around it as much as I can.
Drivers in Winnipeg say they're sick of the streets being riddled with holes.
Sometimes you go on the side of the road, there's water and there's a big hole in there. Not good.
Well, I just, drive slow because I'm not from the city, so I don't really know which ones to avoid for.
Out-of-town visitors like Jackson Sia wonder how this happens.
Regina, there's potholes, but not like this. Sorry.
Last year, April brought over 1,200 damage claims to MPI. We haven't seen quite as many this year so far, but Linda Cole from Tony's Academy Auto Service says this year's pothole season is just as steady as others.
A lot of people are coming right after they hit a pothole, wondering if there's damage, and then a lot of people are coming, oh, I hit a pothole yesterday, now I hear a noise.
Cole says damage to tires, rims, and suspensions are the most common. Especially at this time of year, she says drivers should stay alert to any unusual noises coming from their cars because the cost of pothole damage repairs can quickly add up.
Rubbers on your tires can be anywhere up to $300, and then you get into the big stuff, the suspension, ball joints, things like that. They add up quite quickly.
Have you had any damage from potholes here?
Not yet, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
The City of Winnipeg says since March 1st, it's received 1,431 service requests for potholes. It says people should be watching for them as they drive, and if they see any large or very deep potholes, to call 311. Joanne Roberts, CBC News, Winnipeg.
There's still no word on how long it will take to repair and reopen Thunderbird School at Opeonapawin Cree Nation in South Indian Lake. The roof collapsed over the weekend under the heavy, wet snow. Engineers from the Frontier School Division plan to assess the damage this afternoon. Chief Shirley Ducharme says this 48-year-old school building has had ongoing issues. She says her community has been lobbying to have a new school built in a different location in the community. Meantime, the First Nation has declared a state of emergency. Manitoba is still not ready to make Orange Shirt Day a statutory holiday. The province says its consultations have yet to produce a consensus, while critics argue there is already overwhelming support for making the move. The CBC's Ian Fraze joins us now live from our newsroom. Ian, the province talked about this last September 30th, saying it was going to do consultations. It's previously said it wants to make September 30th a statutory holiday. So what's the delay?
Well, Premier Heather Stephenson is saying there's still no agreement, not among Indigenous groups and not among the business community. Despite the government consulting on this matter for about a year and a half, Stephenson says we've yet to reach a consensus.
There isn't necessarily agreement on what that day should look like, and so we want to make sure that that unfolds the way that, and we want Indigenous people having, the say in what that will look like moving forward as well. Certainly when it comes to businesses, we've heard loud and clear they've been struggling, and we want to make sure that, if they choose to close, they close on their own. We won't be looking at closing them down.
The status quo in the province will remain that that this day will be treated as a day of observance, where non-essential government offices and schools will be closed.
Some critics say the government's just making an excuse. They say there's broad support for making this day a statutory holiday. What do you think, Ian? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what they're saying. Grand Chief Kathleen Merrick with the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs says the government has missed the chance to teach others about the horrors of residential schools.
We're at a time where we're able to talk about the pain that our people suffered. And this was an opportunity for the province for the Orange Shirt Day, that we would have been able to educate our on the history of who we are and what we are and where we came from.
NDP leader Wab Kinew says the government is ignoring a call to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's final report.
I assume that there was a unanimous belief in the chamber on this. We believe in honoring residential school survivors. However, one of the calls to justice is for the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, better known as Orange Shirt Day, to be made a statutory holiday from coast to coast to coast. There is a consensus amongst this, among Manitobans. The only people who don't agree sit in the PC caucus.
The Premier responded by saying this day is already a time in Manitoba to reflect and remember. Last year, the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce surveyed their members, and 70% of respondents wanted a stat holiday. But Lauren Remillard says the survey was clear their members don't just want a day off, but a day for learning, reflection, and growth. He says that's why a broader consensus is needed, like what to do when September 30th falls on a weekend. Janet.
Thank you, Ian, for following this. That's our Ian Fraser reporting live in the newsroom tonight. Manitoba government records show the province spent $35 million on reusable N95 respirators back in 2020. Respirators that largely remain in storage. The 500,000 respirators were supplied by a local company. But now the province says all but 10,000 remain in a storage warehouse. A provincial spokesperson says it would take too much time for healthcare workers to take the masks apart and clean them. Manitoba Nurses Union President Darlene Jackson agrees.
Just wasn't the ability to be sterilizing and cleaning all the equipment that needed to be cleaned because it was, I mean, we were absolutely in a time of war, right, with COVID, and we just did not have the resources.
The province says buying the respirators from a local manufacturer was a way to deal with a shortage of personal protective equipment, which we had at the time. Time to check back in with meteorologist John Sauder, who joins us from Oakville, Manitoba. You can see he's checking the community and seeing what's going on as the Jets take over Oakville. Hello, John.
Yeah. Hello, it is a town takeover. I've got to get Greg over here to come on over for an interview. Now, before we talk about the weather, Greg is here, and Greg, you call yourself a super fan. Why is that?
Well, that's not the name I gave myself, but most people give it to me. It's because I go to every game, I don't miss a game, and I quite often go to road games every year, so.
Well, that's cool. That's very cool. Now, the kids today have gotten to meet a couple of the alumni players. Tell me a little bit about that, because you're a teacher at the school here.
Yes, yesterday they had a skills camp with the Jets, and they got to skate and play with the Jets skills team, as well as Eric Fair and Derek Meach. And that was a big deal for the kids.
And those two are going to be here in the first intermission of tonight's game to sign some autographs.
They are, and they're going to have a couple of jerseys to auction with their name on it, so it'll be a good thing too.
Now, look, show me the number on the sleeve here. This is number 15, and this is the old Jet sweater. I remember when I was a kid, Anders Hegberg came to my school, and I still remember it now. What do you think the kids are going to take away from a day like this?
Well, I hope that the kids from this get the same that I got from watching Anders play. Because Anders Hedberg got me, along with my mom obviously, but he got me hooked into being a Jets fan. And that's why I wore it today, because Anders got me hooked, and I hope this event gets a bunch of these kids hooked on the Jets.
Got me hooked years ago too. He was such a nice guy. Thanks for this, and all the best, and have a great time today.
Thank you very much. Go Jets, go.
Go Jets, go is right. The puck drops at 7 o'clock against the Minnesota Wild, and this is a viewing party. Kids will be gathered around watching the game. And we know which way we want it to go. All right, let's get to your weather. We're at 10 degrees right now. We did make it to 13 earlier. And since, within the last couple of hours, we've had a heavy snowfall warning issued for the Thompson area. That's a separate system that what will move in here later this week. But in Thompson, we're looking at 10 to 15 centimeters of snow tomorrow, and it may even start as freezing rain before switching over to snow. Should mention the winds as well. South sustained at 50 and gusting to 60. Pretty clear sky here across the south, but you look at Saskatchewan there on the satellite and radar imagery, and you can see the cloud and the rain-snow mix that is headed right toward northern Manitoba. So on Futurecast, you'll see this system moving into the north, and you'll see that we have a little bit of cloud cover overnight here tonight. There will be a few showers in the Inner Lake in the morning, but the snow across the north will continue through most of the day. There's Wednesday at 5 o'clock. A partly cloudy sky in the south, snow from Thompson stretching across into Shamattawa and surrounding regions. Then in the south, Thursday is a very cloudy day, and we'll end the day with some showers. Afternoon, evening showers. And by the time we get into Friday, that will be periods of rain. And then as we get into the weekend, those periods of rain will start to mix with some snow. Yes, a lot more cloud and a lot more precipitation on the way. 2 degrees is the low tonight. That means the snowbanks will continue to shrink even while you're sleeping. And just a few clouds in the sky. And then tomorrow morning we're looking at 4 degrees, and then in the afternoon a high of 15 with partly cloudy skies. And then Thursday, we're only at 8 degrees, and you can see how much cooler it will be on Friday and Saturday as we head toward the weekend. So some rain first, Janet, and then we're looking at a rain-snow mix heading on into the weekend.
Well, we appreciate you tracking it for us, John. Thanks so much. We'll check in with you a little bit later. With the provincial election expected to be just 6 months away, Manitoba's political parties are busy nominating candidates. As the CBC's Ian Fraze explains, the parties are prioritizing seats where Manitoba's election will likely be won or lost.
Fort Richmond in South Winnipeg is a swing seat. Not easy for the governing Progressive Conservatives to keep. It's one of the competitive seats where the NDP has had a candidate ready for months.
They have a really strong shot at winning this coming election, and so they're getting their candidates in place, and the candidates are active.
Of the 57 seats in Manitoba, the opposition NDP has selected 37 candidates for the October election, mostly in competitive races. Hopefuls like Jennifer Chen in Fort Richmond have a decent shot at flipping a PC seat to the NDP.
They're already knocking on doors. They're posting pictures of themselves door knocking on Twitter, and that comes from a sense of optimism about the party's chances.
The NDP has been polling ahead of the PCs for 2 years. A recent poll backs that up, but the NDP's lead is shrinking. What was once an 11-point lead for the New Democrats over the PCs last December has been reduced to a margin of just 6 points. Political scientist Royce Coop says many Winnipeg Tories likely saw that coming.
The fact that there are a lot of PC candidates, incumbents sticking around in Winnipeg, suggests that maybe the party's polling is more optimistic than the data we're getting. I'm sure it's going to be a race, it's going to be competitive, but it might not be a complete blowout for the NDP in the way that we think it'll be.
The PCs will have 31 candidates by the end of the week, in safe rural seats and a lot in Winnipeg, like Audrey Gordon in Southdale and Rochelle Squires in Riel. Meanwhile, the Liberals are looking to improve on their 3 MLAs in the legislature. They have 9 candidates nominated and more to come.
I actually just got a couple of emails right before this Zoom meeting of 2 more candidates up for nomination. So,
new leader Janine Gibson wants to give the Green Party their first seat in Manitoba. They hope to run 57 candidates for the first time.
From what I'm hearing, I think it's realistic that we will offer a full slate.
Coop doesn't expect the PCs to call an early election. He says there's no reason to when they're slowly inching up in the polls. Ian Fraze, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg composer and producer Danny Schur died yesterday from brain cancer.
The story as I framed it is as a triumph of the underdog, which I think Winnipeg really relates to.
Schur is most widely known for his telling of the story of the 1919 general strike. He was the force behind the musical strike, the story of which was later turned into the feature film you just saw, a clip of Stand. Schur worked with pop stars as a producer early on, Chantal Kraviatsik and McMaster and James, as well as country group Doc Walker. Danny Schur was 56 years old. Howard Kruger is a longtime fan of and friend of Danny's. Howard, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
What have we lost as a province in losing Danny?
We have lost a lot. You know, Danny was just this talented force of nature. He would not take no for an answer, and he got a lot of things done as a consequence. He was a gifted musician, songwriter, playwright, music producer, film producer, and educator, and just a wonderful guy. I have never met anybody like him. He really knew how to move the needle. And I think what was so unique about Danny, he had this amazing skill set, and the skill sets that he had and the connections that he had, he could have gone anywhere. But he chose to stay in Winnipeg. He could have left the city a long time ago and go off to, to Toronto, Vancouver, or wherever, or the States. But he loved Winnipeg, and he felt this city had so many unique stories to tell. And I guess Winnipeg had that unique pull on him that it has on so many creative types. He was fascinated by the history of the city. And he wanted his cake and eat it too. I think he wanted creative freedom, and he wanted a close-knit family life too, and he had it all.
We got him here where he was producing and directing a film about Terry Sawchuk, and he was so proud of his Ukrainian roots here in Manitoba. Yeah. What do you think it was about that made him tick?
Well, he just he felt it was important to know where you came from, and his Ukrainian roots were just an important part of who he was. And I mean, we're talking about a guy who was born in Ethelbert, and moved to Winnipeg to go to school, and he was so smart and so skilled, but there was also this kind of, I'm not going to say country bumpkin, but there was just something so like lovable about him. He was just so down to earth, and I think that's what helped him move the needle and get the things done that it needed to get done.
Move the needle and raise a lot of money for the arts to create these things, which is not an easy job to do without annoying a lot of people. Danny seemed to do it without annoying a lot of people. That's a magic touch.
Absolutely, Janet. I mean, he was fearless. He seemed content on waiting through 1,000 no's to get a yes. And he willed things to happen, and they happened. And of course, we're talking huge projects that he was able to get to, to the stage and screen. I actually remember him sending me, cause I've known Danny for close to 40 years actually. And I remember him sending me a cassette tape of a 15-year-old Chantal Kraviazik. I mean, the guy had an ear for talent and being able to pick talent and be able to work with them and develop them. And he was, he was so multifaceted.
Howard, we only have 30 seconds left. What do you think Danny's legacy will be?
You know, I think the legacy of Danny is going to be that it's going to be about a Manitoba-born and bred impresario who used his immense talents and drive to leave us with some wonderful crafted stories for the stage and film about the times we lived in and their historical significance. And I'm just looking forward. I just hope we see something like the musical eventually end up on Broadway one day, because I think that would be the ultimate tribute to Danny.
Howard Kruger, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Jen.
The latest fallout from the controversy over alleged foreign interference by the Chinese government is coming up. How it connects with a foundation named after the Prime Minister's father. We'll have more after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. The CEO and members of the board of directors for the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation are stepping down. Their resignations come after the charity became embroiled in controversy over alleged foreign interference linked to the Chinese government. CBC's Catherine Cullen has the latest.
The Trudeau Foundation is a foundation with which I have absolutely no intersection.
The Prime Minister has long tried to distance himself from the foundation named after his father, but lately politics still looms large over the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Foundation.
We weren't partisan. We weren't promoting a particular vision.
The foundation insists on its independence. The nonprofit gives money to support academics, but one donation has it entangled in concerns around foreign interference. It came from this man, Zhang Bin, an advisor to the Chinese government. The Globe and Mail reported the $200,000 pledge was an effort by officials in Beijing to sway Trudeau, though Trudeau's work with the foundation ended before he became Prime Minister. Still, it's messy because the man who was the Trudeau Foundation's CEO back then was appointed by the government recently to write a report about interference in the 2021 election, including the actions of the Chinese government, prompting political reaction like this.
He hired the former CEO of the same Trudeau Foundation that had received the money from China to write a report about it.
And the former Governor General that Trudeau appointed to advise him on foreign interference is also a member of the foundation. Today, the CEO and board resigned en masse, saying, "The circumstances created by the politicization of the foundation have made it impossible to continue with the status quo." Pierre Poilievre tweeted out a call for an investigation into the foundation, but the Prime Minister is pointing the finger at Poilievre.
I have no doubt that the Trudeau Foundation, like foundations and charities that conservative politicians have attacked in the past, will continue to do the excellent work that it will do.
The Prime Minister didn't directly answer whether all this politicization would stop him from making future appointments with ties to the foundation. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Prime Minister spent the day in Toronto today in talks with Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal. Trudeau announced details of a new weapons shipment for Ukraine's military, as well as fresh sanctions against Russia. CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian reports.
One more show of support from the Canadian government as Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's Ukrainian counterpart pays a visit here.
We need more ammunition, we need more weaponry, we need more military equipment. Canada supply and support us in supplying many military equipment.
That equipment now including thousands of new guns and millions of rounds of ammunition. All this ahead of a possible Ukrainian counter-offensive, but also as leaked documents from the Pentagon have made headlines, reportedly showing depleting stocks of ammunition and anti-air defense systems as the year-old war shows no sign of abating. Data unverified by CBC News, but its publication has triggered an American government investigation.
The one card that Putin still has to play is the Air Force, because the Air Force is basically has not been active in Ukraine proper for a year now for fear of being shut down. But if the Ukrainians are suddenly vulnerable in most places, maybe not in Kiev, but in most places, then the escalation that we don't talk about is basically strategic bombing.
Meanwhile, a pro-Russian hacker group also claimed to be behind online malfunctions for the last couple of days, temporarily knocking down the web pages for the Canadian Senate as well as the Prime Minister, something Trudeau shrugged off.
Russia being able to bring down an official Government of Canada web page for a few hours is in no way going to dissuade us from our unshakable support of Ukraine.
In fact, Ottawa says more aid is on the way, including air defense. While Ukraine's Prime Minister continues his North American tour, Washington also on his agenda. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
A fifth victim has now died after that mass shooting at a bank in Louisville, Kentucky yesterday. 9 others were injured when a lone gunman who was a bank employee opened fire. Among the wounded, 2 police officers. One remains in critical condition after being shot in the head. Police confirmed today they shot and killed the 23-year-old gunman at the scene. They say the one the gunman's weapon was purchased legally. Police released body camera footage today. A vigil will be held for the victims tomorrow night. Britain's hospitals have been plunged into chaos after thousands of doctors walked off the job today in a bitter pay dispute. 50,000 junior doctors who work in hospitals and clinics have called a 4-day strike. Juniors are the equivalent of residents here in Canada. Their complaints include being overworked, underpaid, and ignored by the health ministry. They want a 35% raise to make up for a decade of stagnant salaries. Today's strike comes after record-setting protests by other healthcare workers in Britain. Many call the series of actions the biggest crisis ever for Britain's national healthcare service. And here we are looking at the viewing party in Oakville, Manitoba, just east of Portage-la-Prairie. John Sauder is there to bring us a sense of the community fun and your forecast. We'll check back in with him after the break. You're watching CBC. Let's head back to Oakville, Manitoba, where meteorologist John Sauder is standing by. John?
You know what, Janet, this place is getting really full. The kids are having a great time already, and the game hasn't even started yet. I can't believe what a production the Winnipeg Jets put on here. They've even brought the Jets Jumbo Dog over there. Yeah, I may have to try one of those in a little while. I do want to get to your weather, and we are going to be talking a lot more about this event, how it happened, and how Oakville, Manitoba was selected as this year's town takeover by the Winnipeg Jets. But I do want to get to your weather because your Manitoba forecast is a bit different. Couple of systems moving on through in the next little while, one of them affecting northern Manitoba tonight. First of all, the current conditions, 10 degrees in Winnipeg. We did make it to 13 earlier. Right now it's 11 at the Forks, and you can see how much cooler it is farther to the south. In Morris, only 5 degrees, and Emerson will be at 5 as well. 13 right now in Brandon, 16s and 18s over in Red Lake and Kenora. Pinawa at 19 degrees. That forest on a sunny day is really soaking up the sun, so those forested areas will be much, much warmer than the snow-covered areas in southern Manitoba. Across the north, the current conditions look like that just as we head into a system that rolls through into tonight, and you can see that system across the north. So here are your forecasts for tonight in northwestern Ontario. Not a whole lot of weather, really, just clear to partly cloudy, and temperatures staying above zero, as they will across most of southeastern Manitoba. I'm expecting a low tonight of around 2 in the Winnipeg area, also Steinbach and Sprague, and a low of 1 in Pinawa, Barons River, and in Gimli. In the southwest tonight, a little bit of cloud cover. We might see some pretty gusty winds up around Dauphin and Swan River. Right across the south, winds right now are gusting 40 to 50 kilometers per hour. And across the north, it starts as a rain-snow mix. Tonight in Lynn Lake, rain and then 2 to 4 centimeters of snow, and a rain-snow mix in Thompson with a low of -1. And then tomorrow we've got some accumulating snow, and Thompson has that snowfall warning in effect, up to 10 centimeters, could even be as high as 15 in Thompson with a high of 2, up to 10 centimeters in Gillam, Lynn Lake as well. Freezing rain at first, and then 10 centimeters of snow, a little bit less farther north and a little bit less farther to the south. Now across the south, winds tomorrow around Dauphin could be gusting to 70 kilometers per hour, and we could see 5 centimeters of snow in the Swan River area. The rest of us are just bathing in sunshine once again. Becomes partly cloudy late in the day, and in Emerson and even in Steinbach, you know, those high temperatures will be reached, and then you'll see temperatures falling on into the afternoon. Mid to upper teens still in northwestern Ontario for tomorrow. So Janet, I'm going to be right back with a teacher, a different teacher from the school here, and talk to some of the organizers about this event here in Oakville, Manitoba.
We're looking forward to it. Thank you, John. For months, Cambria Harris has been fighting for a search of Prairie Green Landfill just outside Winnipeg. That's where police believe a killer dumped her mother's remains. CBC News spent time with the 22-year-old woman as she discovered a painful family history, painful connected with landfills, and she also pushed governments to approve a search for her mother's remains. Now, there is a longer version of this documentary available on our website, but due to time constraints, we're just going to show you an excerpt here. We pick up Harris's story about 8 years ago when she was 13 years old.
Yes means yes and no means no. Whatever we...
I always grew up with that fear of ending up missing or murdered. And I always had that fear for my mother. And that fear became my worst living nightmare. You can be really, really angry at the world and people, or you can turn your grief around and turn it into something beautiful. And I guess that's what I'm trying to do, and that's by carrying on my mother's legacy through my advocacy. Camp Morgan started after we did blockades at the Birdie landfill. We did 3 days of blockades, and after the 3rd day we decided that we were going to set up Camp Morgan as a tribute to my mother. When I go down to Camp Morgan, we're always doing something different. How's it going, bro? Good. Nice seeing you. How's camp going? Camp is going. Back in January, we hung up 101 red dresses, and we've had a couple different other events since then. We've get a lot of community members to come out. We set up a teepee a couple weeks ago. Warriors at Camp Morgan do a good job at protecting camp. They just make sure that things are running smoothly. When we go to Camp Morgan, we're able to chat and explain how we got to where we are today and why we are who we are. Our family has an unfortunate history with landfills. In the late 1800s through the early 1900s, Morgan's great-grandmother, Ava Francis, lived in one. This was an article written when this all first happened on September 6, 1961, about my family. What does resettlement mean to the Indians involved? Don Francis lives on the eastern edge of the highway shack town. He is one of 8 people living in a 20-foot by 20-foot log and tar paper building. The one room has sleeping accommodations for only 4 persons and has no lights or water. In an atmosphere of flies and filth, the Francis family eats and rests from the glare of the summer sun. Asked why she and her people stayed on when life was so poor, Mrs. Francis replied by asking where the group could go. The only other place she claimed was a reserve. And there, if the people don't get rations from the Indian agent, they starve. When these kinds of things happen, it ignites a fire in us. And that fire was ignited over 100 years ago. The only difference was they tried to burn it out with numerous different kinds of colonial systems. My great-grandmother was a residential school survivor herself, and because of that, my grandmother was a survivor of the child welfare system, as well as my mother, who was also pushed through that system, and then she lost her kids to the system, being me, at the age of 6 years old, her only being 24 at the time. That was her downfall, was losing her kids, and when you lose your kids, you lose where your heart and your home is, and she lost that day, as well as her physical home. And you lose your home, you lose your kids, you start to go crazy, you lose your mind. And my mom struggled with mental issues a lot in the end years of her life. She used to sing to me, and I was always told that she was singing even before I was born. My mom used to take me all around the city on bus adventures, and I remember walking up and down Main Street as a kid, and my mom never hid the horrors of the world from me, and she always explained to me, this is what's happening to your mommy, this is why I can't be around, and I wish I could. My mom didn't even have a shack or a home, and she fought to survive, and that survival was taken away from her at the expense of someone else's hands. Indigenous women have walking targets on their back. I never felt safe growing up, and I don't leave my house past 6 p.m. I don't go across the street at a certain time because I'm scared that someone's going to stop and harass me, or I'm scared that I'm going to get robbed or taken. I don't take cabs, and I always tell someone what the license plate is and who I'm driving with, because that's what you got to do nowadays to protect yourself, because no one else is protecting you.
It is important for us to set the record straight. Investigators believe that the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are at the Prairie Green landfill north of the city.
People seem to think that it's easy or it's going to be extremely difficult, and it's going to be extremely difficult and tedious. She knows we're going somewhere. It's time to finally step up and break those generational curses and give my daughter a better chance at life. Oh, let's go. Intergenerational trauma follows, and history repeats itself. You fail us once, and then you continue to fail us 100 years later. My family went from, let's go this way, being forced off the reserve to living in a landfill to now it being a shocking reality of my mother being underneath lots of debris and trash. Look at this. What is this? The cries of our women get louder, and the anger within the families gets bigger.
We'll be right back. Do you remember meeting a sports hero when you were young? Well, True North Sports Entertainment is trying to do just that, right, John? They're taking over the town of Oakville, Manitoba, creating memories for kids.
Yeah, absolutely, Janet. And so the kids are running around. They're having a great time. This is like an old-fashioned social in Manitoba here, but it's all about hockey and the Jets and the Minnesota Wild tonight, and a whole week long of activities. Now with me is Ashley Tully and Ryan Lamblez, and I'm going to start with you, Ashley, because you're a teacher at the school, and you kind of applied for this event late in life, right?
Yeah, we just kind of applied for it randomly, not thinking we really had a chance to win. And our community and our outlying communities came together and they voted for us, and here we are having a great night.
How excited were you when you found out it was your town?
Oh, I ran around the school telling every class. It was pretty crazy, and my kids were cheering. It was awesome feeling.
And Ryan, yesterday, some of the Jets alumni were here skating with some of the kids, and now we're standing on concrete. How incredible is that?
Yeah, it was awesome. The whole town got together to come in here and get the ice out. We had 4 skid steers in here and 20 guys pushing the ice out. We did it in 6.5 hours. It was incredible.
Some kind of new Oakville record?
A new record, absolutely.
Getting back to the school, and the Jets and some of the people with the Jets have been visiting schools about Project 11. Tell me a little bit more about that.
We do Project 11 right in our school. One of our teachers teaches it through the whole year. And so the kids were very familiar with it today, the mindful movements. Susie talked to all of our kids, talked about courage and 3 T's, try, talk, and trusted adults. And it was amazing. And the kids knew exactly what she was talking about and the reason to take our brains just as much as our physical health and our mental health. So it was lovely to see Susie in person.
It's about more than hockey, it really is. Now, this was, the kids have been excited for a little while. Describe to me how, like, your experience with the kids and the excitement in the town.
Oh, it was awesome. The kids were all excited, running around. You hear them talking at school, you know, even their parents talking at the rink. It was awesome.
And it's quite an operation. The Jets really do it up, don't they?
They really do, yeah. Yeah, it was amazing today to get everything in here. Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Congratulations on being the Jets town takeover winner this year. It's been super. Have a great time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, Janet, we're going to be back with, I think there's a bit of a pep rally happening just before the end of the show. So I'll be back with that and your 7-day forecast shortly.
We look forward to it. Thank you, John. Well, see, you want to get fans, create memories, pull on heartstrings. You get those fans when they're young. That is a powerful strategy for building a long time and loyal fan base. And it's what True North Sports and Entertainment, the Winnipeg Jets, are doing as they launch a new season ticket drive.
Winnipeg. Whoever thought that this town could be an NHL city? Too cold. Too small. Too ordinary. Some say that Winnipeg is a collective act of will, a place founded on strength of community, molded by conviction and a fighting spirit that echoes through generations.
That's a new excerpt from a promotional video the Jets have just put out. The Jets are currently attracting about 14,000 fans a game this year. That means about 1,000 empty seats per game on average. So the Jets are offering discounts on food, drinks, and merchandise to season ticket holders. In a statement, True North says, so long as fans are in Canada Life Centre, the Jets will play in Winnipeg. Well, and certainly when you see videos like that and you talk about the pride of this town, you'd hate to see them ever leave. Meteorologist John Sauder is back with your 7-day forecast, and we'll bring your daily lift as well. Stay with us.
My name is Jim Agapito, and my grandma was going off to the Philippines. Before she left, she looked at me and she said, Jim, what are you gonna do when you know nothing about the language and culture? You are a bad Filipino. She doesn't actually think that I'm a bad Filipino. Well, maybe she does, because the only things I know about are the swears in Tagalog and, well, karaoke. Students love karaoke. Come with me on this adventure where I learn about the culture.
It's a little bit loud in here. I don't know if you can hear me. All of this excitement is for the Winnipeg Jets and the Wild tonight. Here's a look at your 7-day forecast. You can see tomorrow is another warm day, and then things kind of take a slide. A lot cloudier, some rain on Friday, changing to snow on the weekend. And right now we've got a room full of Jets fans, amazing Jets fans getting ready for the game tonight. Are we going to make the playoffs? That's all from Oakville, Manitoba. I'll send it back to you, Janet.
Thank you so much, John. Have a great evening, and go Jets, go.
Thank you. Go Jets.
John always does such a great job when he's out on those live locations. Here's something else that's pretty phenomenal. More than 80 giant tortoises have been released into the wild in the Galapagos Islands. This is part of an endangered species breeding program in Ecuador. The Hood Island hatchlings were born and raised at a conservation park. The little ones were then fitted with a microchip, so that lets the researchers monitor their travels. Then they did something else I've never gotten to do. They took a helicopter ride to their new natural habitat in the islands. The breeding operation has proven enormously successful. It started with only 15 tortoises 50 years ago, and it's produced 3,000. Let's hope they all have long, happy lives. I do love a sea turtle. At this time of year, here at home, we don't have sea turtles, but we do have lots of melting snow, and that can cause all kinds of problems. It can also present opportunities for fun. Here's your daily lift. Meet Jean-Philippe Toll. He's going by the nickname JP. This is the third spring in a row that his West Kildonan back lane has flooded. So JP decided to get his kayak out this year and go for a little paddle. The water will probably rise a bit more with the snow melt, but it usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks for the water to recede. So hey, until then, maybe West Kildonan needs a little kayak crossing sign. Good for you, JP. I think that's very creative of you. Thank you for being with us here this evening. We hope you enjoyed the newscast, and we'll see you here again tomorrow night at 6. Remember, you can watch us anytime on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. Good night.